Donald Trump got onto the stage and said crypto to the moon, and there was a huge uproar in the crowd. Then again, the crowd at Nashville gave another loud cheer when he said on day one of his presidency he would fire Gary Gensler. But why is the Fintech Chronicler talking about Donald Trump and Gary Gensler? Well, that's because this week's community podcast is all about the political aspects of cryptocurrency. If you're new here, then welcome. I'm your host Kamalika Poddar, also known as the Fintech Chronicler, and I host these weekly community podcasts where we get into the depths of a fintech news and hopefully learn from each other in the process. Today's topic is a little different because we're going to be talking not about the technicalities of a fintech product, Bitcoin specifically. So if you're here for that, I'm really sorry to disappoint you, but do stay tuned in because hopefully we'll be able to understand what really causes the volatility behind an asset, a digital asset like Bitcoin. And is it all just FUD, or is there really a method to this madness, which is the peaks and the troughs of Bitcoin's prices? But before we get started, just some basic house rules. At any time where you feel that you have a question or a drastically different opinion from what I'm talking about, feel free to raise your hand, which is the little hand icon at the bottom left corner of your screen in the LinkedIn audio room. Come right up on stage and we'll have an amazing discussion. So let's start by understanding what the global sentiment around Bitcoin is at the moment. And let's start off with some of the positive sentiments that are there around cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular. So on one side, we have a lot of regulatory developments that are happening, especially in the US, where the US House of Representatives recently passed the Financial Innovation and Technology Act for the 21st century. And this act aims to provide like a very clear regulatory framework for all digital assets. This move is seen as a significant step up especially in legitimizing and stabilizing the crypto market. Then there were a launch of a number of Bitcoin ETFs, which was followed closely by the in-principle approval for launching and marketing Ethereum ETFs, which has provided a lot of traditional investors with an easy to access or an easy into cryptocurrency. Then of course we have a lot of high profile political support and political figures like our former president, Donald Trump, and independent candidates like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who have shown active support for cryptocurrencies. And this is actually signaling a shift in the political attitude, and this could actually influence regulatory policies a lot more favorably too in the future. Then there's a lot of the market predictions that comes in from experts like JP Morgan, who by the way is very bullish on crypto. And this was at the end of July, start of August 2024, where he suggested that the market would rebound strongly and provide opportunities for many, many gains. But not everything is hay and sunshine in the crypto world. There are a lot of negative sentiments too. One is the market volatility, where despite positive developments, major cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, they've all experienced a significant price drop. For instance, Bitcoin was just shy of $70 shy of the 70,000 benchmark 2 days ago, and now it's almost trading at that 65 level just within 3 days. And this drop was especially due to the Federal Reserve of the United States, their decision to maintain the interest rates at the current level. And overall also, I think the market is pretty volatile with a lot of fluctuations in the prices, and this is a huge deterrent to risk-averse investors. Then of course there were a lot of regulatory sirens going off, especially with the US Securities and Exchange Commission, which has continued to send out warning signals to investors about the risks that are associated with cryptocurrency, especially their emphasis on the need for caution and due diligence when investing in crypto products. That there are a lot of broader geopolitical and economic factors as well, such as what we saw with the US Federal Reserve's decision on interest rates, geopolitical tensions that are there in Russia and Ukraine, a lot of the presence of other geopolitical tensions, especially in Israel and all of that, which continues to impact the crypto market today. But yes, I think one of the biggest impact has been the Fed's decision to not cut rates. And this could also mean that down the line, in the future, they could decide to cut rates. But then that uncertainty also means that crypto still stays a very volatile asset over there. So how is it that ETFs, a traditional instrument like an ETF or an exchange traded fund, which is launched for cryptocurrencies, how has that had an impact on the sentiment around the crypto markets? One is, of course, let's again start with the regulatory legitimacy that it's provided. And in a way, when you see a lot of big traditional companies launching these ETFs, it gives a lot of market validation to new investors to crypto. It gives a sort of legitimacy to Bitcoin within the mainstream financial systems. And this perceived legitimacy can actually bolster investor confidence and help in driving the prices up. Of course, this also means that it makes it a lot more accessible and liquid. Previously, any cryptocurrency was not really seen, it was just seen as something that the tech bros could use. But with an instrument like an ETF, an exchange traded fund, it becomes a lot more accessible. Especially the spot Bitcoin ETF, which has provided a very straightforward way for investors to gain exposure into a BTF without having to go through all of the complexities of storing it in a secure digital wallet, or when they want liquidity, putting it up, converting it and moving it from their digital wallet to the exchange in order to trade it on a crypto exchange, and all of those hassles are kind of now taken care of. This of course means that it leads to a little bit of liquidity because you're no longer just storing it in cold wallets to protect yourself from crypto frauds. And the other positive is that it's led to a lot of institutional inflows. Because the regulatory frameworks that are associated it's also reduced the cost of storing cryptocurrencies in a way. So this has appealed to a lot of institutional investors, especially those who are looking to hedge against inflation. But of course, these have all this, while this as well as the Bitcoin halving did have an impact on the price, I think the demand for new investors getting into the crypto market cannot be discounted, because as we all know, Bitcoin has a fixed supply. So if these kind of traditional investment products can increase the high demand for it, can lead to higher demands with very limited supply, this could definitely have a big impact on the prices as well. Now let's come to the very interesting Nashville conference that happened recently. So Bitcoin conference, this is like the biggest Bitcoin conference in 2024, which was held at Nashville from July 25 to 27. And it highlighted a lot of what's happening in the crypto landscape. And the best thing was it attracted a lot of highly influential political figures, as well as senators in the US, regulators from the US, which led to a lot of good discussions happening around the Bitcoin or crypto discussions. The biggest highlight was, of course, Donald Trump. I think he just said 4 things: Bitcoin to the moon. He's going to fire Donald Trump. He's going to legitimize stable currencies, and he's going to support for having a Bitcoin fund within the US Federal Reserve. And on the back of all of this, by the way, not just the shooting, I think even this kind of helped Trump raise another 25 million during this event, just during this conference alone. So it does show that his involvement and support for Bitcoin, it's definitely giving a lot of legitimacy again to the digital currency. Then a lot of previous naysayers from the traditional finance world, like BlackRock, for example, their head of digital assets, Robert, I'm not able to pronounce the rest of his name, but Robert Mitchnick, I think, emphasized that the growing adoption that they're seeing for Bitcoin ETFs has also contributed not just to BlackRock's revenue, but also to the growth in wealth across American citizens who have invested in this product as well. Now, just in 2018, I think BlackRock's CEO had remarked that he does not see a legitimate use case for Bitcoin. But yes, now we're seeing that shift also happening with a lot of traditional investors coming in. Then we had the ever Bitcoin bull, Michael Saylor, the CEO of MicroStrategy, said that by 2045, which is another 20 years from now, he believes each Bitcoin could reach 49 million per unit. And the total market cap for Bitcoin alone would be 280 trillion. It is in another 20 years, so we don't really know if that will materialize, but very optimistic sort of a scenario. There were a bunch of senatorial debates also happened, and they were discussing about the future legislations around Bitcoin. Now, if they're already talking about how they should be regulating and controlling Bitcoin, I think it means that the general public is also moving towards accepting Bitcoin, which again, Bitcoin and then other cryptocurrencies as well, it kind of legitimizes that. There was a lot of technological innovations and announcements also that happened at the Nashville conference. Ledger, which was one of, I think till 2022, they were one of the most popular cold storage wallets for Bitcoin. They fell from fame, but that's another story altogether. Anyways, Ledger unveiled a new hardware wallet, which was known as FlexTM. And they said that this is maximizing security and while not making it too technically complex either. So they're adding a ease of use layer as well. I'm still very dicey about going back to Ledger after a lot of the things that happened. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to take a quick pause here because I just got a WhatsApp message right now, just as we were speaking, which mentioned that the UAE is going to allow people to start trading or start transacting using their bank account itself if they want to buy and sell Bitcoin. Wow. This news is about 3 hours old, and this actually more than US saying that they will not have a CBDC or anything. I think this legitimizes Bitcoin. UAE allowing their citizens, their residents to trade in crypto directly from their bank accounts. I think this can actually have a huge positive impact on the entire DeFi ecosystem. I'm sorry, I'm still processing the news. I'm still going through it line by line. And okay, some of the reasons why they've said is because they're seeing increased adoption. Okay. Wow. A lot of users convert fiat to crypto, fiat to stable coins, and then to crypto. They feel that the UAE banking system should also be a part of that transaction. Nice. By the way, the point to note here is that UAE already has a very, just off the top of my head, because this is not a news that I had time to kind of process. But yes, just top of my head, I think UAE has always had a very stringent KYC check and AML checks, and a lot of the regulatory standards they follow over there. It's of the highest compliance standard. So it makes sense that their bankers would then be allowed to provide that platform. Pseudonymous, it's not really anonymous. Your wallets are just pseudonymous. But if you are linking a wallet transaction to your bank account, you can actually track where those payments are going. So this will also, in my opinion, and this is just off the top of my head, just seeing the news, just perusing it as I was talking to all of you. But this can actually reduce the risk of illicit activity using Bitcoin. This is very interesting. I will have to completely digest it. I'm reading through the lines of this particular news item that came up. And also, by the way, I think UAE was one of the first that had a regulatory framework for stablecoin issuance from their central bank itself. So if any country can pull off, juxtaposition of traditional banking with crypto. But this really kind of brings me to the final question, which is India, or do you think Indian government and the Indian central bankers are being a little too cautious, and this is probably resulting in India missing out on the entire Bitcoin Ethereum hype cycle? Crypto taxations is one of the biggest hurdles behind why the number of Indian wallets have been so inactive in the recent years. There is a 30% tax on every crypto income that you make, 1% TDS on every transaction. So these rates are pretty high for the average Indian to get in there. Also, every other day, I think our finance minister comes out saying that she sees Bitcoin as an illegal asset. So this lack of regulation also adds to a lot of the ambiguity around it. But a lot of the new wallets that have started trading even smaller volume tickets in 2024, by the way, have been from the Indian subcontinent. So this is kind of all I wanted to discuss today. Good to see Gayatri, you as well on the audience, and Amitji, as always. Very great seeing you over here every day. But yes, that's about all I had. I think I will need some time to go back and digest this news that's come out from UAE. But if anyone has any questions or any thoughts, Amitji, I know you have a lot of thoughts around Bitcoin and crypto. So yes, would love to hear from all of you.
Thank you, Kamalika. Great show. Thanks always, as you have said. I just wanted to know what are the similarities in the regulation in the Federal Reserve and Reserve Bank of India, because Reserve Bank of India is not so comfortable getting into crypto trade.
Very true. And I think it's very good a decision that RBI does not want to get into crypto, because even if you see the way that NPCI kind of evolved, right? They evolved as a concept within RBI, and then it moved out as a completely autonomous institution to build out UPI. Simply because I think the smart folks at RBI had that foresight to know that when it comes to such mass scale adoption of technology, they probably don't have the bandwidth to deal with it. They're already dealing with the impossible trinity for central banks. So I think it's a good decision that they've not really gotten into figuring out crypto regulations and all of that. In that way, what the US does differently is crypto is actually being regulated by 3 entities so far. There was the CFTC, there was SEC, and some of the transactions was also being looked. No. So right now, digital assets come under a new act that the US has come up with, which is the Financial Innovation and Technology Act this was recently tabled. I think it was only in May that it was tabled. So they're setting up a independent committee under this for any digital asset. They've not just restricted it to cryptocurrencies, but for any digital assets. This is the regulatory body that I think it's called the FITA, which is Financial Innovation Technology Act. The regulatory body that sets this up will be the one who will be building and overseeing all digital assets. So yes, that's I think how they've done it differently. One is to also, by the way, UAE has done a similar thing as well, where first they tabled a bill that defined what digital assets are. After defining digital assets, they then set up a committee to figure out the scope of monitoring and regulating these digital assets. And then that committee then took up, future projects like building a CBDC, etc., etc.
Hey, I have one more question. When someone is using a crypto wallet,
yeah,
his wallet gets freezed, like he cannot withdraw money. So what do you have to say about that?
So recently also WazirX got hacked and a lot of people's wallets. I had a little bit of money from when I was in college trading in WazirX, and yes, I realized I can't use it anymore. That is, I think whenever anyone has that's where, technology partners like Ledger comes into play, because they have these cold wallets which are offline. They're not on any crypto chain or on any exchange and stuff like that. It's completely offline. You access it using a code. It's I think a 32-bit code that you have to provide in order to log into it. And then you can choose to put some amount or the full amount that is there in that particular ledger onto a crypto exchange when you want to trade. It is a tedious process, but yes, for most people who have a significant amount of... Yeah. Sorry.
But at the end of the day, it should be regulated by some government entity, right? Because if it is not being regulated by entity, then it becomes illegal to trade in the cryptos or maybe any other asset class, right? And it becomes risky also, because you can lose out any time.
It
your
is.
Money or your asset.
That's true. It is risky, but I think that's where a lot of these frameworks that people are talking about now comes into play, because I don't think the general public still fully understands what the technology behind any of these cryptocurrencies is. Like just the other day, I was reading about Ripple, and so far, I thought that there were only 2 types of blockchains that were there for cryptocurrencies. One is proof of work and proof of stake. Ripple is neither. So, the fact that there are so many different kinds of algorithms to create these currencies, That itself is not known to most of us.
Yeah, but the thing is that in the forex also, if the forex platform is being regulated by the RBI, then it is okay. If it is
Yeah.
unregulated, then you can lose out your forex or whatever
Correct.
your US dollar or whatever you are doing into that. So at the
Absolutely.
end of the day, regulation is necessary. Not necessary; it is mandatory.
Absolutely.
In our country.
No, absolutely. Absolutely agree with you. Which is where I think I would look forward to seeing what our finance ministry has in plan for any digital asset for that matter, not just cryptocurrency.
Yeah, thank you, Kamalika. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, Amitji. And Ronak, good to have you as well. But that brings me to the close of today's session. And I had a very great time talking about this. I'm definitely going to go back and reread about this entire news that's coming in from UAE. And maybe we'll talk about that next week. Till then, take care.
I learned a lot from you today.
Thank you so much, Amitji. See you later. Bye.
See you.